Chapter 19. The Book of the Prayer for the Two Eids. Chapter 1. It was narrated that Anas bin Malik said, the people of the Jahiliyyah had 2 days each year when they would play. When the Messenger of Allah came to Al-Madinah, he said, you had 2 days when you would play, but Allah SWT has given Muslims something instead that is better than them, the day of Al-Fitr and the day of Al-Adha. Great Sahih. Chapter 2. Going out for the 2 Eids, the morning of the following day. It was narrated from Umayr bin Anas from his paternal uncles that some people saw the crescent moon and came to the Prophet, and he told them to break their fast after the sun has risen and to go out for Eid, the morning of the following day. Great Sahih. Chapter 3. Adolescent girls and women in seclusion going out for the 2 Eids. It was narrated that Hafsa said, Atiyah would never mention the Messenger of Allah without saying, may my father be ransomed for him. I said, did you hear the Messenger of Allah say such and such? And she said, yes, may my father be ransomed for him. He said, let the adolescent girls, women in seclusion, and menstruating women come out and attend the Eid and supplications of the Muslims, but let the menstruating woman keep away from the prayer place. Great Sahih. Chapter 4. Menstruating woman keeping away from the place where the people pray. It was narrated that Muhammad said, I met Atiyah and said to her, did you hear the Messenger of Allah say anything? When she mentioned him, she would say, may my father be ransomed for him. He said, bring out the adolescent girls and the women in seclusion, and let them witness goodness and the supplication of the Muslims. But let the menstruating woman keep away from the place where the people pray. Great Sahih. Chapter 5. Adorning oneself for the 2 Eids. It was narrated from Salim that his father said, Umar bin al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, found a hulla of istibrak in the market. He took it and brought it to the Messenger of Allah and said, O Messenger of Allah, why don't you buy this and adorn yourself with it for the 2 Eids? And when meeting the delegations, the Messenger of Allah said, this is the clothing of one who has no share in the hereafter, or this is worn by one who has no share in the hereafter. Then as much time passed as Allah SWT willed, then the Messenger of Allah sent to Umar a garment made of dibaj. He brought it to the Messenger of Allah and said, O Messenger of Allah, you said that this is the clothing of one who has no share in the hereafter. Then you sent this to me. The Messenger of Allah said, sell it and use the money for whatever you need. Great Sahih. Chapter 6. Praying before the Imam on the day of Eid. It was narrated from Talaba bin Saddam that Ali appointed Abu Masud over the people, then went out on the day of Eid and said, O people, it is not part of the Sunnah to pray before the Imam. Great Hassan. Chapter 7. Not saying the Adhan for the 2 Eids. It was narrated that Jabir said, "The Messenger of Allah led us in praying on Eid before the khutbah with no adhan and no ikama." Great Sahih. Chapter 8. The khutbah on the day of Eid. Al-Bara bin Asib narrated to us by one of the pillars of the Majid. The Prophet delivered a khutbah on the day of An-Nar and said, "The first thing we start with on this day of ours is the prayer. Then we offer sacrifice. Whoever does that, he has followed our sunnah. But whoever slaughtered his sacrifice before the prayer, that is just meat that he gave to his family." Abu Burda bin Niyar had slaughtered his sacrifice, and he said, "O Messenger of Allah, I have a jadha that is better than a musinna." He said, "Slaughter it as a sacrifice, but that will not be sufficient for anyone else as a sacrifice after you." Great Sahih. Chapter 9. Eid prayer before the khutbah. It was narrated from Ibn Umar that the Messenger of Allah, Abu Bakr, Umar, may Allah SVT be pleased with them, used to offer the Eid prayer before the khutbah. Great Sahih. Chapter 10. Offer the Eid prayer facing an anasa, a short spear. It was narrated from Ibn Umar that the Messenger of Allah used to take out an anasa, a short spear, on the day of Al-Fitr and the day of Al-Adha, planted in the ground, and pray facing toward it. Great Sahih. Chapter 11. The number of rakas in Eid prayer. It was narrated that Umar bin al-Khattab said, "The prayer of Al-Adha is 2 rakas. The prayer of Al-Fitr is 2 rakas. The prayer of the traveler is 2 rakas. And the Jumu'ah prayer is 2 rakas, complete and not shortened, upon the tongue of the Prophet." Great Sahih. Chapter 12. Reciting Kaf and the hour has drawn near in the Eid prayer. It was narrated that Ubaydullah bin Abdullah said, "Umar, may Allah SVT be pleased with him, went out on the day of Eid and asked Abu Waqid al-Laiti, 'What did the Prophet recite on this day?' He said, 'Kaf and the hour has drawn near.' Great Sahih. Chapter 13. Reciting, Glorify the name of your Lord the Most High, and has there come to you the narration of the overwhelming on the 2 Eids. It was narrated from An-Numan bin Bashir that the Messenger of Allah used to recite on the 2 Eids and on Friday, "Glorify the name of your Lord, the Most High, and has there come to you the narration of the overwhelming." Sometimes the 2 Eid and Jumu'ah occurred on the same day, and he would recite them, these 2 surahs. Great Sahih. Chapter 14. The khutbah on Eid after the prayer. It was narrated that Atta said, "I heard Ibn Abbas say, I bear witness that I attended Eid with the Messenger of Allah. He started with the prayer before the khutbah, then he delivered the khutbah." Great Sahih. It was narrated that Al-Bara bin Asib said, "The Messenger of Allah addressed us on the day of An-Nar after the prayer." Sahih. Chapter 15. Giving people the choice whether to sit and listen to the Eid khutbah. It was narrated from Abdullah bin As-Saib that the Prophet offered the Eid prayer and said, "Whoever would like to leave, let him leave." and whoever would like to stay for the khutbah, let him stay. Great Hassan. Chapter 16. Adorning oneself for the Eid khutbah. It was narrated that Abu Rimta said, I saw the Prophet delivering the khutbah wearing 2 green birds. Great Sahih. Chapter 17. Delivering the khutbah from atop a camel. It was narrated that Abu Khalil al-Amasli said, I saw the Prophet delivering the khutbah atop a she-camel, and an Ethiopian was holding on to the camel's reins. Great Hassan. Chapter 18. Imam standing during the khutbah. It was narrated that Simak said, I asked Jabir, did the Messenger of Allah deliver the khutbah standing? He said, the Messenger of Allah used to deliver the khutbah standing, then he would sit for a while, then stand up again. Great Sahih. Chapter 19. Imam standing during the khutbah, leaning on another person. It was narrated that Jabir said, I attended the prayer with the Messenger of Allah on the day of Eid. He started with the prayer before the khutbah, with no adhan and no ikama. When he finished the prayer, he stood leaning on Bilal, and he praised and glorified Allah, SVT, and exhorted the people, reminding them and urging them to obey Allah, SVT. Then he moved away and went to the woman, and Bilal was with him. He commanded them to fear Allah, SVT, and exhorted them and reminded them. He praised and glorified Allah. Then he urged them to obey Allah. Then he said, give charity, for most of you are the fuel of hell. A lowly woman with dark cheeks said, why, O Messenger of Allah? He said, you complain a great deal and are ungrateful to your husbands. They started taking off their necklaces, earrings and rings, throwing them into Bilal's garment, giving them in charity. Great Sahih. Chapter 20. Imam turning to face the people during the khutbah. It was narrated from Abu Sa'id al-Khudri that the Messenger of Allah used to go out to the prayer place on the day of Al-Fitr and the day of Al-Adha, and lead the people in prayer. When he sat during the second rakah and said the taslim, he stood up and turned to face the people while the people were sitting. If he needed to mention something concerning the dispatch of an army, he would tell the people. Otherwise, he would enjoin the people to give charity. He said, give charity 3 times, and among those who gave the most charity were the women. Great Sahih. Chapter 21. Listening attentively to the khutbah. It was narrated from Abu Hurairah that the Messenger of Allah said, if you say to your companion, be quiet and listen when the Imam is delivering the khutbah, you have engaged in idle speech. Great Sahih. Chapter 22. How the khutbah is to be delivered. It was narrated that Jabir bin Abdullah said, in his khutbah the Messenger of Allah used to praise Allah as he deserves to be praised. Then he would say, whomsoever Allah SVT guides, none can lead him astray, and whomsoever Allah sends astray, none can guide. The truest of word is the book of Allah, and best of guidance is the guidance of Muhammad. The worst of things are those that are newly invented. Early newly invented thing is an innovation, and every innovation is going astray, and every going astray is in the fire. Then he said, the hour and I have been sent like these two. Whenever he mentioned the hour, his cheeks would turn red, and he would raise his voice and become angry, as if he were warning of an approaching army and saying, "An army is coming to attack you in the morning or in the evening." Then he said, "Whoever leaves behind wealth, it is for his family, and whoever leaves behind a debt or dependence, then these are my responsibility, and I am the most entitled to take care of the believers." Great Sahih. Chapter 23. Imam urging the people to give charity. It was narrated from Abu Sa'id that the Messenger of Allah used to go out on the day of Eid and pray 2 rakahs, then he would deliver the khutbah and enjoin giving charity. And the ones who gave most charity were the women. If he had any exigency or he needed to send an army, he would speak of that. If not, he would go back. Great Sahih. It was narrated from Al-Hassan that Ibn Abbas gave a khutbah in Al-Basra and said, "Pay the zakah of your fasting." The people started looking at one another. He said, "Whoever there is here from the people of Al-Madinah, get up and teach your brothers, for they do not know that the Messenger of Allah enjoined sadaqat al-fitr on the young and the old, the free and the slave, the male and the female, half a sa of wheat or a sa of dried dates or barley." Great Daif. It was narrated that Al-Bara said, "The Messenger of Allah addressed us on the day of An-Nar after the prayer. Then he said, whoever prays and offers the sacrifice as we do, his ritual is complete, and whoever offers the sacrifice before the prayer, that is just ordinary meat." Abu Burda bin Niyar said, "O Messenger of Allah, by Allah, we offered the sacrifice before I came out to the prayer, because I knew that today is the day of eating and drinking, so I hastened to do it. And I ate of it and fed it to my family and neighbors." The Messenger of Allah said, "That is just a sheep for meat." He said, "I have al-jadha, that is better than 2 meaty sheep. Will that be sufficient as a sacrifice for me?" He said, "Yes, but it will not be sufficient for anyone after you." Great Sahih. Chapter 24. Moderation in the khutbah. It was narrated that Jabir bin Samura said, "I used to pray with the Prophet, and his prayer was moderate in length, and his khutbah was moderate in length." Great Sahih. Chapter 25. Sitting between the 2 khutbahs and remaining silent while sitting. It was narrated that Jabir bin Samura said, "I saw the Messenger of Allah delivering the khutbah standing up. Then he sat down for a while and did not speak. Then he stood up and delivered another khutbah. Whoever tells you that the Prophet delivered a khutbah sitting, do not believe him." Great Sahih. Chapter 26. Recitation and remembrance during the second khutbah. It was narrated that Jabir bin Samura said, "The Prophet used to deliver the khutbah standing, then he would sit down, then he would stand up and recite some verses and remember Allah SVT, and his khutbah was moderate in length, and his prayer was moderate in length." Great Sahih. Chapter 27. Imam coming down from the minbar before finishing the khutbah. It was narrated from Ibn Burayda that his father said, while the Messenger of Allah was on the minbar, Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein came wearing red shirts, walking and stumbling, He came down and picked them up, then said, Allah has spoken the truth. Your wealth and your children are only a trial. I saw these two walking and stumbling in their shirts, and I could not be patient until I went down and picked them up. Chapter 28. Imam exhorting the woman after finishing his khutbah and encouraging them to give charity. Abdurrahman bin Abbas said, I heard Abbas when a man said to him, Did you go out to the Eid prayer with the Messenger of Allah? He said, Yes, and were it not for my kinship position with him, I would not have done so, meaning due to him being so young. He, the Prophet, went to the mark near the house of Qatir bin As-Salt and prayed, then delivered a khutbah. Then he went to the woman. He exhorted them and reminded them and told them to give charity. So a woman would bring her hand near her neck and take off her necklace and put it in the garment of Bilal. Great Sahih. Chapter 29. Praying before and after the Eid prayer. It was narrated from Ibn Abbas that the Prophet went out on the day of Eid and prayed 2 rakahs, and he did not pray before or after them. Great Sahih. Chapter 30. Imam offering a sacrifice on the day of Eid and the number of animals he may slaughter. It was narrated that Anas bin Malik said, The Messenger of Allah addressed us on the day of Al-Adha and went to 2 black and white rams and slaughtered them. Great Sahih. It was narrated from Nafi that Abdullah bin Umar told him that the Messenger of Allah used to offer sacrifice in the prayer place. Great Sahih. Chapter 31. When 2 Eids come together, when Eid falls on a Friday, and attending them both. It was narrated that An-Numan bin Bashir said, The Messenger of Allah used to recite, Glorify the name of your Lord, the Most High, and has there come to you the narration of the overwhelming on Friday and on Eid, and when Friday and Eid converged, he would recite them both. Great Sahih. Chapter 32. Concession allowing those who attended Eid prayer not to attend Jumu'ah. It was narrated that Liyas bin Abi Ramla said, I heard Muawiyah asking Zayd bin Arqam, Did you attend 2 Eids with the Messenger of Allah? He said, Yes. He prayed Eid at the beginning of the day, then he granted a concession with regard to Jumu'ah. Great Hassan. Wab bin Kaysan said, Eid and Jumu'ah fell on the same day during the time of Ibn As-Subayr, so he delayed going out until the sun had risen quite high. Then he went out and delivered a khutbah, and he made the khutbah lengthy. Then he came down and prayed. And he did not lead the people in praying Jumu'ah that day. Mention of that was made to Ibn Abbas, and he said, He has followed the Sunnah. Great Sahih. Chapter 33. Beating the dove on the day of Eid. It was narrated from Aisha that the Messenger of Allah entered upon her, and there were 2 girls with her who were beating the dove. Abu Bakr scolded them, but the Prophet said, Leave them, for every people has an Eid. Great Sahih. Chapter 34. Playing in front of the Imam on the day of Eid. It was narrated that Aisha said, "The black people came and played in front of the Prophet on the day of Eid. He called me and I watched them from over his shoulder, and I continued to watch them until I was the one who moved away." Grade Sahih. Chapter 35. Playing in the Masjid on the day of Eid and women watching that. It was narrated that Aisha said, "I remember the Messenger of Allah covering me with his rida while I was watching the Ethiopians playing in the Masjid until I got bored, so you should understand the keenness of young girls to play." Grade Sahih. It was narrated that Abu Huraira said, "Umar came in when the Ethiopians were playing in the Masjid. Umar, may Allah SVT be pleased with him, rebuked them, but the Messenger of Allah said, 'Let them be there, O Umar, for they are Banu Arfida.'" Grade Sahih. Chapter 36. Concession allowing listening to singing and beating the duff on the day of Eid. It was narrated from Urwa that he narrated from Aisha that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq entered upon her, and there were two girls with her beating the duff and singing, and the Messenger of Allah was covered with his garment. He uncovered his face and said, "Let them be there, O Abu Bakr, for these are the days of Eid. Those were the days of Mina, and the Messenger of Allah was in Al-Madinah on that day." Grade Sahih.